What's going on, guys? It's John DeYong here, and today is the start of a new multi-part mini-series. My wife and I have recently had discussions along with our mortgage broker and accountant, and we're now in a strong position to buy our next property. Hopefully, we'll be able to do it during COVID-19. It's a great buying opportunity out there right now as it's a big buyer's market. Considering open homes and auctions are physically cancelled, it's a little hard to purchase property, and consumer confidence has just been thrown out the window, but I'm planning to take full advantage of this market if a good opportunity comes up. A lot of my podcast listeners and YouTube viewers have been wanting a full end-to-end process of buying an investment property. So I'm hoping to cover every step of the journey in this new mini-series. Going over my thought process, talking to my team around me, and going through the due diligence items I've done on my checks. Obviously, trying to buy a property in these conditions are going to be tough. My wife runs her own business, which is hard enough to get financed through in itself, but they're in the retail sector, so although she has plenty of cash buffers and is still running quite successfully, depending on how long the economy is pretty much closed down, we could run into a little trouble down the line. On top of that, although I've been working for the same company for the last 9 years, there is always job uncertainty through this hardship. So as we start to align those elements of purchasing the next property, something could come undone at the last minute and stall or even stop the process altogether. Lastly, if you've been following my portfolio process, we have 2 investment properties already that we actually Airbnb out. Obviously, tourism is down and we've already had 3 cancellations. I'm not too worried about this as we've moved into one of the places for the time being, and hopefully there'll be some people in Melbourne who need some short-term rental accommodation, but worst case scenario, we can just rent them out traditionally. If something does end up changing, I'll give you guys an update and most likely postpone the next video until we're on track again. But what we do have going for us is some strong cash buffers in the bank. And being the Warren Buffett fan that I am, it's markets like these that require you to be greedy. Others are being fearful, and although those same concerns are running in the back of my head, I also know that it's a great time to take action. If you're keen for these types of videos, don't forget to smash that like button. On the point of no inspections and auctions, obviously this buying process is going to be a little different than usual. I won't be able to report back on some of the statistics from the open homes, such as how many people were there, etc, etc. So I'll include other things in these videos that I would do under usual circumstances in the case that you're watching this in the future in a normal market. I'm not a big fan of buying at auction unless it's absolutely required, so the private treaty sale process will be business as usual for me anyway. A lot of people are talking about online inspections and virtual walkthroughs, but I would never buy a property without physically inspecting it myself. Multiple times and at least once with a building and pest inspector. So I won't be buying under any of these unusual situations. With any investment, the first thing that we always do is look at our next 3 to 5 years and see what we've got coming up. Any big holidays, new car plans, etc. And make sure that our short-term goals align with this next purchase. On top of that, we have 10-year goals, retirement plans, and we ensure that this next purchase fits in with all of these goals. I call this first step the goal alignment phase. We are actually now 14 weeks pregnant at the time of recording for our first child, so big steps moving forward for us. But this obviously means that in 6 months' time, there will be some financial changes, and our living requirements will change too. Both of our current properties are 2 bedrooms, and I have the ability to work from home, so usually one room is just set up as an office. Taking these requirements into consideration, my wife and I have decided that this next purchase will be the final stepping stone into our dream family house. So this will be the house before our final family home. It will need to be a 3-bedroom minimum and still tick all of those boxes of an A-grade investment property. This purchase will obviously have to be in Melbourne, as that's where we are currently, and we're planning for this to be our principal place of residence. So I'm confident enough in my ability to do my own due diligence and research without having to approach a buyer's agent, which I've said I would only do if I buy in another state. As for a price, we'll see what that pre-approval outcome is. We've only just purchased our second investment property 10 months ago, which we did refinance our original property to pull out some equity and use that as a deposit to purchase the second one. We did buy at the bottom of the market in 2019 though, before that federal election, and we've seen some good growth since. Thankfully, the next step for us was to approach our team around us to see what sort of position we are in and if we could buy it again. This is a critical step, of course, as our mortgage broker can run the numbers on the loans for us, and our accountant can calculate the additional income tax that we'll need to pay due to that Airbnb income. So although we have got some good cash buffers, some of that is going to be income tax. depending of course on any relaxation that old mate ScoMo implements during COVID-19. Speaking of mortgage brokers, I want to reinstate how important it is to not only have a team around you, but ensure that you have the right people for the job individually. I've had the same mortgage broker for the last 4 years. He's a great guy and good at what he does, but he's just not as proactive as I would have liked him to be. It was just the little things, such as it was always me contacting him, finding new rates or refinancing or what we needed to do to be able to purchase again. And then after it was always me constantly trying to reach out, it was always like a slow response or negative feedback without an alternative proposal. So it was time for me to find a new one. I'm a very loyal person, as you can probably tell by me being in the same company for 9 years. So I don't like putting people out or having awkward conversations, but it was definitely time for me to find someone new. And what a godsend this new mortgage broker has been. Thankfully, through the podcast, I've met some incredible individuals who have all given me great insights and contacts within the industry. And this is where I found my new mortgage broker, who doesn't even have a website or barely a public presence. They are purely just word of mouth, which is great reassurance. So after going through all of those tedious fact finders again, providing pay slips and documentation, I thought this was just going to be another process that was a waste of my time for someone else to try and get my business. However, that new mortgage broker went away and came back with a full mortgage and investment plan. This is something I've never experienced from a mortgage broker before, and now I clearly understand what makes an investment savvy mortgage broker. Not only did they get multiple valuations for my existing properties, they broke down how much equity we could release from refinancing, proposing which lenders' valuations came in at the highest, and on top of that, who had the best deals and rates going. It was literally a step 1, step 2, step 3 plan, all laid out in front of me. Obviously, I asked a ton of questions and ensured the little things like ongoing fees, offset accounts, principal and interest versus interest-only rates, essentially all of the things that go into a mortgage strategy. I'm not a person to go for the best rate. If it's a bad package, then I'd rather be able to pull out less equity than be stuck in an unfavorable loan. In fact, here are just 7 questions that I asked in my first response email. Number 1, are there any concerns around this specific bank potentially becoming insolvent, or will someone else just buy the debt? Number 2, does this particular bank refinance have an option for an offset account as well as the other bank? If so, what are the costs? Question number 3, did we end up getting multiple valuations for all properties? Question number 4, are there any setup costs or annual costs associated with any of these packages? Number 5, are these rates assessed on variable or a fixed rate? Variable is what we would go for. Number 6, could we analyse the refinances based on interest only? And number 7, what is the interest only rollover to principal and interest period for all loans? If you're unsure why I asked any of these questions or what they actually mean, leave it down in the comment section below and I'll go into further detail about the reasoning behind them. So the plan was essentially, step 1, refinance our first investment property, which could be done straight away. This would allow us to pull out $16,000 in equity, save us $2,000 a year in interest, and give us a cash rebate of $3,000 if we had applied before the 31st of March. Pretty silly not to refinance in my opinion. Step 2 would be to refinance our second investment property, purchased in July 2019, which has seen a little bit more growth, and we'd be able to release $23,000 worth of equity. We'd be moving to a principal and interest owner-occupier loan as we're now living there, meaning this does increase our repayments but only by about $400 a month, but saved us $1,839 a year in interest. The third and final step is to apply for a pre-approval of our next property, which in addition to our original cash buffer, we now have another $42,000 to go towards a deposit, including equity in both properties and that $3,000 cash rebate. In the worst case scenario where we can't buy again, this money just sits in our offset account of our owner-occupier loan, meaning we aren't paying any additional interest on the borrowed money until we use it. Again, this was sort of a no-brainer for us to go ahead and refinance now, as in the very worst case scenario that we lost our jobs, we'd have an additional $42,000 to live off. So this is where we are currently. We're now in the process of refinancing all of our home loans based on the valuations we got before coronavirus was predominant in Australia. I don't know how valuations would come in now based on the current economic conditions, or if valuers are even still working, so it may be a little bit hard to repeat the same process. Again, I'll keep you updated on any progress moving forward and walk you through the asset selection process in detail. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about in this video today, just leave them below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. As always, seek your own professional financial, legal, taxation and property investment advice for your current situation. These videos are just my opinion and are general in nature and should never be considered as personal advice. If you're keen for more content, make sure you subscribe and smash that notification bell so you don't miss a video. And until next time, happy house hunting.